Hello and welcome to the Romance Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are talking about summer romance. But before we get started, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Susan.
Hi, I am Susan H. Roddey. I typically write dark fantasy and horror, but I also moonlight as a romance author under the pen name Siobhan Kincaid. Um, I write a lot of romance, I read a lot of romance, and I'm always happy to geek out about books.
Okay, VJ.
I'm VJ Allison. I'm an Indigenous steamy romance author from Nova Scotia, Canada. I mostly write contemporary, but I've also been known to dabble in the paranormal horror romance books. And I have two books set during the summer here in Nova Scotia, which are really hot and humid. Summers here are really hot and humid, so it's going to be fun, right?
Kay.
Hi, I'm Kay Evan Coles. I write mostly contemporary romance, but I also dabble, as we all do, in a little bit of paranormal as well, because I just enjoy writing it. And I don't know if anyone asked, I'm in northeastern northeastern United States in Massachusetts, and it's super hot and humid here, and I'm melting a little bit.
Yeah.
So if I start to kind of just ignore it.
Okay. Layla.
I am Layla Dorine. I write LGBTQ fiction and romance. And talk about dabbling. I've got bikers, shifters, rockers, contemporaries. I've got aliens who've crash landed in the cornfield. I think the only thing I haven't done yet is cowboys, but one is coming next year as part of a really awesome series. And I am so excited to be here. And it is hot. I am in north central Iowa, where for some reason it has decided that even if it's 82 degrees according to the temperature, our feel like temperature is like 97 and we're melting. I tried to bring a slushy home from the gas station, and only about half of it was still slush when it arrived.
And I'm Gail C. Martin and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy and some steampunk co-authored with my husband, Larry N. Martin. And as Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. I'm in North Carolina. It is hotter than Hades here and very, very humid. I spent the holiday weekend in northwestern Pennsylvania, which is where we're from, and it was 10 degrees cooler, but still kind of sticky. So the cooler was still better. So we've all talked about the summer heat and not necessarily that kind of heat. When everybody is sweaty and sticky and ooh, don't touch me, what makes summer romantic? And let's go one idea at a time, because we've got a lot of territory to cover, and then we'll move on to some other things. But Susan, start us off.
One thing that makes the summer romantic, the beach. I grew up on the coast of South Carolina. I actually grew up on the barrier islands outside of Charleston. So I always equate summer with being on the ocean, the sand, sun, smelling like Hawaiian tropic deep tanning oil, which is probably the best smell on the planet. And I'm always a sucker for a good story that happens on or near water. And I don't know. I am an equal opportunity romance lover, so I will read anything. I will write just about anything too. And so for me, anything that involves vacations, fruity drinks, the beach makes me happy.
Not to mention on beaches, people wear very little. So not quite as much as the middle of the winter.
And it seems to be getting less and less too.
I'm with Susan on this one. Beaches. Nova Scotia has like over 3,000 miles of coastline. There are beaches everywhere, and here you were never more than 45 miles away from the shore. So it's just like you can go, like you can be in the middle of Nova Scotia and just go to the beach that day and be home spend most of the day at the beach and be home that same night. We also have, as Gail knows, she's seen them, the highest tides in the world here, and the Bay of Fundy, I don't know, there's just something so magical about it, because as a child we would go camping up in the Annapolis Valley all the time. And I remember seeing the tides like when I was 6, 7 years old, and it's just they always you know, intrigue me, and I've always been like very curious about them. I always thought they were so magical and beautiful. And when you get out there walking along, along the beach with bikinis and that kind of thing, that kind of helps makes it romantic too. So nothing like a moonlight walk on the beach in the middle of a very hot, humid Nova Scotia summer, or it is for me at least.
Okay, Kay?
Okay, I am going to choose camping, even though I am not a person who camps. But this is because I can write a romantic camping kind of thing without actually having to endure the utter lack of romance that usually happens if I try to go camping because of the bugs and that kind of thing. But the idea of camping is very appealing to me. I just don't do it. And recently I have become interested in like rooftop campers. Do you guys know what those are? It's like a tent that you put on top of your car. To me, this seems like a really fun thing. It could be terrible, by the way, but it seems really fun because you're off the ground, so you don't have to worry about, bugs or anything wet, and you're a little closer to the sky, and it just sounds lovely. So I'm planning to explore this in something that I'm writing now, and I will make it as romantic as possible, which won't be hard because writing camping as a romantic activity is simple. Actually, having a romantic camping trip for me has not happened.
I would think those rooftop campers depend a lot on what kind of car you have. If you have a
100%.
minivan, yes. If you have a VW Beetle, maybe
Not. Not,
maybe
yeah.
not. Layla?
I love the beach. It's always one of my top favorite places, but I was just down in Florida where it was, hot and humid, but surprisingly less hot than here. And we got in the water pretty much every day. And the water kind of reminded me of what I run my bath water temperature at. It was warm. However, we went kayaking in a spring-fed river. The water was like 60 degrees. It was cold. It was crisp. Like we're having to ease into this. You can't just fling yourself. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, setting a nice romantic kayaking trip and a picnic where they're like because we were kind of in a crowded spot, but I would put my characters in this spring-fed river where they can cool off all they want. We saw raccoons digging for clams. We saw otters. We saw garfish swimming in the water and deer along the side. And I'm like, oh, talk about a beautiful setting for a romance. But also, I was reminded by a friend when I got back here. He goes, the lake up the road is spring-fed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot. So anything that is spring-fed and cold in summer, since it is the ick factor of, oh my God, I don't want to be touched. And, a good old water park, if you can't get out into the outdoors to the kayaking and everything, works just as well. Because there are plenty of ways to like enjoy a romantic ride at a water park, especially if you go in the evening when most of the people have taken the smaller children home. So I've got all of those things kind of set up for the summer romances that I've been working on because they're just cold. And in summer, I want to be cold. I want the person snuggling up with me to tell me it feels like snuggling with a penguin because I do not like to be hot.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say lakes and the forest. I grew up going camping in the Adirondack Mountains of New York, which is not as far north as VJ is, but you can see it from there, sort of. Not Nova Scotia, but you're
I'm
probably,
below 45 latitude.
yeah,
I'm like
you're
44.5.
we were probably only about 20 miles from the Canadian border because it was very easy to go over at that time, and we did a lot. But
Around Quebec.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's further north of me.
Okay.
It's quite a bit. The part that's further south of me is the peninsula of Ontario.
Okay. So massive untouched pine forests, glacial lakes that are very cold all year long. And you're far enough north that, yes, you do get the mosquitoes, and they're big there. But you feel like sitting around a campfire and, in the evening, because it's actually cool and it smells like pine trees. And so that to me is, I set a whole series there because I just really fell in love with that area going up there. And there's all kinds of history and all kinds of stuff, but the lakes and the forest, I think, are a fantastic setting for a romance. So, what's your favorite kind of summer date, Susan?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Uh, oh, I think I'm about to be attacked by the void, but anyway, um, I don't know. Like you were talking about the idea of campfires in the forest, things like that. We grew up having summer bonfires, so that's a little nostalgic for me. I love the smell of a campfire. I love the smell of your clothes after you've been near a campfire. Uh, I love, again, walking on the beach at night is still to this day one of my favorite activities, and I don't get to do it nearly enough. But that always, even when I was a lot younger, that always seemed so romantic. The idea of walking down the beach, the logistics of it aside, because walking on sand is hard enough during the day. in, in the romances, the world is perfect, and we don't have to worry about things like being clumsy. Not necessarily, and I'm not necessarily worried about, you know, food and fancy things. I like the simpler settings. I like things that are more realistic, more believable. So anywhere, again, nice and cozy is going to make me happy.
Okay, VJ?
The beach, definitely the beach. I mean, my husband and I we had our first date down here on one of the very few drive-on beaches in Canada, which is one of the beaches I grew up at. I also think that going to an art gallery or something like that, or like a museum like the Fisheries Museum of the Atlantic out here in Lunenburg is another one. Like Fort Anne, Port Royal, aka the Habitation, like a museum, a historic site, because like Kejimakuji is one of the Canada parks here, national parks. So is Lewisburg up in Cape Breton Island, which is the northern part of the province. I'm on the mainland, the southern part, for anyone that doesn't know. And anything like, art wise and stuff like that is ideal for me because I'm an artist as well as an author. But like, there's so much stuff to do here in the summertime because this Nova Scotia is a tourist, like basically one of the biggest tourist places in all of Canada. I mean, we're small, but we're mighty, so to speak. So art galleries, museums, beaches, you name it, kayaking, we've got that too, campgrounds over the fence. Too much to really list right in this short of time. So
Okay. Kay?
I am a city person and I enjoy doing things in my own city. I live in the Boston area. And it's a weird thing. One of my favorite things to do is I think Gail knows this because I've talked about it before. I like going to a baseball game, like to see the Red Sox, because it's a really fun time. You get to watch people all day, you get to watch a game. Usually it's crazy, like because the fans are insane. And then you're just outside and sort of is soaking up the summer atmosphere and having a lot of fun with a huge group of people who aren't necessarily talking to you. So it's just like, it's sort of an extrovert's kind of a dream situation because you don't necessarily have to interact with anybody, but you're in the middle of this hive of activity. So, and then you can also just go anywhere in the city and have a nice meal after, or a drink or whatever after the game finishes, and enjoy the cooler part of the evening. So to me, something like seeing a baseball game or going to a museum, something like that, a little bit of an activity before you get to chill out is nice.
Okay.
Fenway Park is supposed to be a lot of fun too. My husband's been there a few times.
Mhm.
It is a lot of fun. The fans are really intense.
Layla.
Oh man, I am a little bit different from pretty much everyone else because I am one who will fill the cooler with drinks. Let's put, a picnic basket, strap it to the back of one of the motorcycles, the cooler on the back of the other. Let's go for a ride. Let's find, a trail that we can hike up to a waterfall, spend part of the morning up there, maybe roll down into the valley, find like a little outdoor music festival or a flea market. I love flea markets. I am an outdoor flea market kind of girl and an outdoor, like anything artsy that's outdoors, a show, or if you've got vendors outside, let me find an ice cream stand or an old fashioned soda fountain. We can grab those before we have lunch in a park somewhere while we listen to the music. And then let's just keep that ride going and meander and see where we wind up. And maybe, my dad used to always have these collapsible fishing poles, and I still have one, and they fit beautifully on a bike too. You can get some fishing in the afternoon. You can go meander, and like maybe one meal out of the day might be at an actual restaurant, but it needs to be something outside where you're not sitting right next to people, or even better still, every now and again, I will find an authentic drive-in where you can sit in your car with the radio blasting and the tray hooked on the window, chow out, blare your, whatever song you're listening to, and still like be, hanging out with that person. If you're in a vehicle, on a bike, it's a little harder. We can go to the drive-through. We got to get a table in order to be able to eat because we don't have anywhere to clip the, trays. But after that, it's like I want a snow cone at some point in the evening. Maybe by then we found our way to the beach or we found our way to the lake or the pond where we could spend some time by the water. Um, there's definitely got to be some water element involved. We may even find an amusement park or splash pads are amazing. When the splash pads are empty, I am the first adult dancing in the splash pad underneath the spray because, you're going to dry off on the back of that bike before you get to your next destination anyway. So I like to have like a whole day out and just let it become what may and see where the road takes us and what we encounter and have a bunch of fun. And there is no better way to end the evening than underneath a gazebo lit with fairy lights and somebody playing the sax or a cello or something in the distance. And you're just dancing there in your own little world, even if there are people on the benches and other places around the gazebo beside you, that you've got that feeling of like, this is your own little moment. And I actually just wrote that in one of the books that's coming out with my co-writer later in the month. A nice little gazebo scene with the saxophone player, because that is just a fabulous end to a date. And a little bakery, if you can find one open late, that's got those little fruit tarts that you can share. They're just small enough you can share those as like your final, kiss goodnight.
I'm going with amusement parks. I grew up going, two of the parks that I grew up going to, sadly, are no longer around, even though they lasted for 100 years each. Conneaut Lake Park in Conneaut Lake, Pennsylvania, and Geauga Lake over in Ohio. My part of Pennsylvania is really close to the Ohio border. But Kennywood in Pittsburgh is still going strong. Cedar Point over in Ohio is kind of a mega park. And while I no longer have the enthusiasm for some reason for roller coasters that I once had, maybe it's because I pay for my own life insurance now. Maybe it has something to do with inner ear issues. When I was a teenager, I'd ride anything, but it's like, maybe not. But you've got the music, you've got the lights after dark, you've got all the food, you've got to me, it's a great day to walk hand in hand down the Midway. And maybe you ride the tilt-a-whirl. Maybe you just ride the Ferris wheel. Maybe you throw baseballs at the, duck game. But there's just so much to do, and there's always music, and there's a certain, you can smell all that good food, and people are usually in a really good mood. And you know, there's probably a dark ride that's some sort of haunted house that you can go through and smooch a little bit when you're, you know, around the corner from everybody. And you know, I just absolutely love amusement parks, and I don't get to go nearly as much. We live near Carowinds uh, here in North Carolina, and when the kids were little, we had season passes, and we were there all summer, and I loved watching them love it. So yeah, amusement parks to me are just extremely nostalgic. I've written them into several books, and they're just a fun date. Which leads me to, what is your favorite sexy summer food? Susan?
Okay, that's probably not a question for me because food in romance tends to be weird to me. Um, the idea of sharing drinks, you know, sharing a milkshake, or you know, and it's funny you mentioned Carowinds. I'm about 30 minutes south of Carowinds, and coincidentally, one of my favorite dates that my husband had been on, and I have been on since we were married, was going to Carowinds and spending the entire night trying to trip up all of the actors because they
Carowinds
couldn't
is the
scare.
Halloween version, which they
Yes,
do very well.
yes, it is great. But walking, we've had season passes for the last several years, and walking through it at Christmas time now that they have Winterfest going on, um, hot chocolate, popcorn, walking through when everything is decorated for Christmas, that kind of thing, I absolutely love. It's I don't know, food to me, I don't food a lot of times in romance tends to come off as inauthentic to me. Even though, you know, first dates tend to be dinner in a movie or something like that, but I don't know, dinner in a movie kind of feels like an overdone trope to me in real life and in books. So but I do like the idea of, you know, the fair foods, the ice cream and the popcorn and just fun little finger foods and things that it's easy to share or steal a bite of. So yeah, I'm probably not much help with this question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. BJ?
Well, we used to have a really awesome amusement park here called Upper Clements. You may recognize the name, Gail, because you've been here
Mm-hmm.
several times. But it closed down quite a while ago. In fact, the remnants of it are still falling down. But fair food, because we have the Big X South Shore exhibition coming up at the very end of July, and there's like a lot of things there, like we have a food up here. It's Halifax's the official food of Halifax. It's called the donair. It's basically like spiced meats with a type of garlicky sauce and onions and tomatoes on like a pita bread. It is so good, and you have to try it.
Sounds really good.
Ever visit Nova Scotia, you have to try it. We also have something called Moon Mist ice cream, which is something else you got to try. Developed Nova Scotia too. It's grape, bubblegum, and banana. It sounds weird, but it is out of this world. So good. Those are the two things that I can name off the top of my head, because like we're so regional and stuff here. I like to focus on like Nova Scotia foods in my books. Like we have a very strong fishing industry here, like lobster, scallops, haddock is extremely popular and one of my favorites. I can't touch anything like clams or anything like that, like mollusks or crustaceans. I'm very allergic, which is kind of annoying considering. But like I also like to we have the Acadian shore here, which is up around the western part of the Bay of Fundy. I tried like, and honestly, I had a lot of the Acadian foods like tortilla, which is like a type of a meat pie. I had lobster rolls, and apple dumplings and that kind of thing. Authentic Acadian food added into their first date, which was a walk on the Bay of Fundy out off Blomidon Beach. So, I mean, if it's authentic food to the region, it screams sexy to me. I don't know why, but it just does.
Okay.
Because, I mean, there's so many unique foods here. I try to include them if I can, but, you know, I want to make everything as authentic as possible. So yeah, anything that's like regional, like especially if it's a Nova Scotia book, yeah, that's what I call sexy date foods.
Okay. Okay.
I'm so hungry. I just wanted to say that out loud.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So a couple of people have mentioned fair foods. Those are fun because you're together and you get to share and that kind of thing. Picnics are also great. I think that we should all go on more picnics, even though it's kind of a lot of work, but that's so much fun to just like pack up your lunch and go hang out somewhere. And ice cream is a big deal. I love ice cream. And I think that also people should be enjoying as much of it as they can. But as far as like the over the top sexy foods, fruits, something sticky that you have to clean up, barbecue, anything that involves like, you know, licking your fingers or whatever. If you're going to go really overt, may as well go that way. But when I'm writing, I tend to focus on whatever I personally like to eat, or if I'm writing a character who has some connection to food, like I've written a Korean character and he really wanted to make Korean dishes for the person he was interested in. The person he was interested in was a chef. So it turned into this like sort of food, not a battle exactly, but let's introduce each other to, you know, to the foods that we like. So as long as it feels organic, I think there's sex appeal there, if that makes sense.
Layla?
Give me a New England clam broil any day, or a big old platter of all the seafood, either fried or like done in butter, and a big lobster roll on the side. But for dessert, as much as I love ice cream, petit fours or petite fours, however you want to call them, those little cakes that are just 2 bites, amazing, most amazing date food I've ever tried, because you can feed each other and it's 2 bites, which means you can get all the flavors. Like I think the last time that I had a chance to really get a big box and try all the flavors and share them with someone, we were down at a place in South Mississippi that it's just a fabulous bakery. I couldn't even tell you the name of it off the top of my head. They do king cakes and everything there, but we got every flavor of petit four they had, and then 1 bite each, and you shared them. And you know, it's funny because just getting to try a flavor and then talk about the flavor, and oh my gosh, which one was your favorite? Mine was watermelon. Holy cow. Hey, what do we do next time? Maybe next time we cut some in half and try a bite of watermelon mixed with a bite of like the lemon, and see if it tastes like watermelon lemonade. Like if your date partner, you know, in real life or even in your book, is if you're both foodies, there is so much fun. Because, oh, have you tried the lobster roll at this place? No. Hey, have you tried the clam chowder at this place? Hey, wait a minute, let's try this place and this place, and over here mix and match the food. Or you'll get them together in a backyard scene where they just want to have a big old clam broil, roll everything out on the table, sit across from each other, and talk the afternoon away as they like munch on all this delicious food. So there's like so many cool things that I can do with the food. From like I grew up in New Bedford, so my fellow New Englanders over there, I know, yeah, you know, you get outside, and behind my dad's house, we would have a big clam broil every year. And you know, me and my longtime boyfriend at the time used to sneak away around the little corner of the porch steps, not to, you know, make out or anything, but to have a quiet spot with our big tray of seafood, feed each other, dip it in all the different sauces, because my uncles like to outdo themselves. Oh, you made a spicy butter sauce, I'm going to do this over here. I got this tartar sauce that you can't top. And we're over there like, and we're going to sample this and this and this. And that way, when the uncles asked at the end what was the best, we're like, we dripped stuff in every compartment. It tastes best when it's all mixed together.
Well, you know, I absolutely adore fair food, because whether you get it at a county fair or at an amusement park, you know, it usually means you're having a good time and munching while you're there, and often on a date. So that whether it's popcorn or sausage dogs or whatever it is, you know, that just means good times. Um, I in one of my series, the characters are always cracking wise with each other about, oh, that looks like something out of a cheesy adult movie. So sometimes a footlong hot dog is just a footlong hot dog. But if you want to eat it dramatically, you can do that too, to show off your skills. If you want to lick that mile-high cone and really make an impression, you can do that too. Um, if you want to glug down that Slurpee and let somebody watch the Adam's apple bob up and down, it's not your fault if it gives people naughty ideas. So it's also kind of fun, especially when people aren't taking it too seriously, but they're kind of seeing how cheesy sexy they can be for fun on a date with these foods, and it, you know, kind of takes on a life of its own, and, you know, certainly gets people laughing, and happy people tend to have great after events. So certainly boosts the mood. So now, and I guess this is, oh, I also want to, Layla mentioned clipping the tray onto the window, which is kind of a lost art. But the other place that happens used to be at drive-in movies, which don't exist much anymore. But if you can find
Drive-ins,
one,
yes.
There's one in the
drive-ins are great.
valley. There's
There-
one up here in the valley.
There's a couple in
there-
Massachusetts too.
sometimes-
They're
yeah,
always
sometimes
packed.
they
Love
get
'em.
preserved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so if
will
you can find
say,
one.
at those carnivals and amusement
There is
parks,
actually one near us, Gail.
you
Really?
get those foot-long
There's-
drinks going, those really tall ones and 2 straws, and you've just enhanced your evening by at least 25%, depending on what you've got in that foot-long drink that you two are sharing.
This is true. This is true. So last question, and that is, what's your idea of a sexy vacation? Susan?
For me, and this is given the fact that I've talked about the beach and the sand and the ocean and things like that pretty much the entire time, my ideal sexy vacation would be a cabin in the woods, in the mountains, away from all of civilization, where you were completely isolated. You don't have to deal with people, you don't have to deal with traffic. Preferably if, you know, something crazy happens and you get stuck and you don't have to leave for an extra several days. That would just make me happy. You know, I'm okay with the beach. I'm okay with your typical go into Disney World or, you know, taking a road trip, but my favorite thing in the world is to be completely away from the rest of humanity for a little while.
Okay.
So,
PJ?
plus if you're, you know, away from the rest of humanity, you can get up to all kinds of shenanigans and nobody's there to judge you. Mostly.
And if you don't mind the mosquitoes, clothing is optional.
I hate
There is that.
mosquitoes. We have a ton of them here. Anyway, I've never done it, but I think a great vacation would be like a train trip across Canada, especially through the
Mhm.
Rockies and
I
stuff
wanna do
like
that.
that, through Western Canada. I've seen photos of Alberta and everything. It is absolutely stunning around Jasper, and Edmonton is supposed to be beautiful, and up north, up and around the Yukon, Northwest Territories and Nunavut, it is supposed to be absolutely gorgeous. I want to do that someday, and one of these days I'm probably going to wind up including a train trip across Canada from Halifax to Victoria. Yeah, Vancouver. That's the one that's on the mainland. I get them mixed up sometimes. Or, you know, vice versa, like west to east, something along those lines. But like stuff that I can do would be probably like a day trip to Halifax or something like Quebec City or something like that, and go around to all the various museums and art galleries and stuff. Because my uncle was an artist too, a well-known woodland artist, and I just like to see the different techniques. Because he would sit there and paint with one bristled brush just to get the tiniest little detail in there. His work was exquisite, and I like seeing how different people paint and draw too. So, but that's me. That is something I plan on including in one of my books soon.
Okay. Okay.
I'm with Susan, actually, despite the fact that I am a city person, the idea of a vacation is to get away from where I am, right? And I would love to go, so I live in New England, I would love to go to Vermont, or actually even just like a very isolated beach house or like a lighthouse. Ooh, that would be nice.
Beautiful.
And I think there should be hammocks and not many people around so that you can be nude. Can I say that? I've said it, sorry. So that you can be clothing optional if you wish. And also naked, yes. And also build like campfires and things, just all of the stuff that you can do under the sky that you don't normally do in your everyday life because there are people around or you're, going grocery shopping or whatever. Getting away from the typical and being someplace quiet and lovely.
Okay, Layla?
Load the bikes up on the back of the RV trailer, get in the RV, no map, no plotted course. Let's just wander. I'm a foodie, so I want to like if I even catch wind that someone's got calamari over here or something that or like there's a sushi bar over there, I'm there. Let's check it out. We rolled into town and there's signs for junk days. We're going junkie wine tasting. I get very bored if I'm sitting in the same spot repeatedly. So being able to move that RV from town to town, campground to campground, park the RV, get the bikes off the back, and then go check everything else out. That is amazing for me because I'm still like in the evenings when we're winding down, if it's not an all night, till 2 a.m. music festival, you can have that alone time. You just find yourself a nice non-crowded campground, which is surprisingly easy to do if you don't go to the ones that are suggested on the tourist maps, which I never do. I look for the signs for like the primitive campground and all of that stuff to just be able to pull in for a night and chill. And yeah, hammocks. Funniest story of my childhood was watching my dad get this one hammock that didn't have the bars. It was just like a mesh. And then he kept getting caught in it. At one point it spun. And so he's like a spider in a web. He's stuck and he's bellowing for me and my sister to come get him out of this thing because he's swinging there. And my dad was an old biker dude. So, he's not necessarily bellowing the most polite of Massachusetts swears as he's yelling for us. But like, I look at all of those memories, and those are also the things that, like, when I started dating my, fiance at the time, and I would go out and do all of that stuff, and we would just make a day of it and get in my battered old Ford EXP and see, like, literally, we called it Where the Day Takes You. And that was the best vacation type. You could have a 3-day vacation of 3 different campgrounds, 3 different lakes, water parks, amusement parks, a music fest, a fair, and hit all of that in 3 days, come home exhausted and be so glad it was summer vacation and you didn't have to go back to school on Monday.
When I still lived in a small town, I thought that the sexiest thing ever would be to go to like New York City, Times Square, a big city, maybe London, but a big city with somebody who knew their way around and could navigate and knew how to get the tickets and knew all the good places to go. I thought that was very sexy. And when on one of the first dates with my husband, I had moved to Pittsburgh. He hadn't yet. And I invited him to come for a weekend. I planned the whole thing out to show him all the sights and take him to all the best places and all that. And I found out later that absolutely everything I planned to take him to was not something, he was allergic to the food at one place. I struck out on every single choice. So I guess he had to marry me to keep me from taking him on more dates. At least that's my story. He says it really wasn't that bad. And it's been 38 years. So, I still get to plan vacations. But I think my idea of sexy vacation has changed over time, not only with where I live, but with responsibilities and the pace of life. So, where I used to think it was great to go someplace where it was go, 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 go. And I had a lot of fun doing things like Disney World with and without children. Disney World has its, sexy places if you know where to look. Um, Now I kind of like cruises that are quiet and beautiful scenery and great food and nice music and maybe a steamboat down the Mississippi River. Um, Plenty of leisure time to do whatever you want to do in a beautiful setting with people taking care of you. Sexy can be a lot of different things, and it's kind of fun to explore them in tune with what your characters like to do and where they're from. Well, folks, we have blown through our time. So one last quick round, tell everybody where we can find you online. And if you have a new, recent, or upcoming book, please tell us about it too. Susan?
Right. I can be found pretty much anywhere from my link tree. The username on that is Roddey. I actually just re-released the first novel in my Wonderland War series. It is dark fantasy, but it's also sort of romantic, a little bit steamy. It's just a cross-genre nightmare, set in a new cycle of Wonderland, actually. So that's available. And my next romance is actually due out next year, so we're not ready to talk about that one yet. But yeah, all the social media, Linktree, that's how to find me.
Okay. VJ?
You can find me at Ecstasy Books and Decadent Publishing, which are my two publishers. I'm on Amazon, Facebook, Hey Cafe, which is the Canadian version of Facebook, which is becoming quite popular. I'm on Blue Sky. Goodness, I'm blogger. I word processor romance cats, kids and Creed is my blog name over there. I'm also on Scribes Tribune, which is a newsletter for authors that I write with Zach and Dawn, two of my best friends, and Zach is the one I'm co-writing a book with. My most recent book is Could Have Been. It came out from Ecstasy Books last year, and it's the first part of two, and right now I'm working on 3 books called the one with Zach is a crime drama, which is completely different from what I normally write. And I'm also in the middle of trying to finish up the Feathered Tartan series, like the sequel to this, which is called His Reasons to Fight. And I've also got a love story on the go called Thorns of the Rose. Keep checking on Amazon because His Reasons to Fight and Thorns of the Rose will be released as an independent author under my own company called Amethyst Rose Productions. So
Okay. That's a lot coming in the pipeline. Okay.
I'm busy.
Most of my socials, on most of the socials, except for what do they call it now? X. And you can find all of them on my website, kevancoles.com. I do have my first audiobook coming out on July 23rd. I'm super excited. I worked with a great narrator, Kevin Earlywine. He is fantastic and human. I just wanted to point out that he's a human being. So I'm very excited about that. And then I also have the third book in a series coming out probably in the fall. So we'll have a little bit more to speak about at that time, I think. Oh, sorry. And I have my first foreign language translation coming out as well. Also for Hooked on You, audiobook, Italian translation, probably next month. I just got the manuscript and this morning, and now I have to do stuff with it. And you're like, okay, I don't know what to do. So that will be my next project, is figuring out what to do.
Very cool. Layla?
Thank you.
You can find me at Layla Dorine author at wix.com, Rainbow Lyrics and Mellow Mushrooms, which is my blog. You can find me way too much on Facebook. I'm getting better with Instagram and TikTok. My last solo release, Echoes of a Muted Song, which is Rockstar Romance, came out at the end of last month. It is available in paperback and KU and all of that. And we're working on finding a narrator on Audible. I do have a German release that just went live about 4 days ago through Deadsoft. It is Waiting for Rain, the first of my Comet Lake Wolf Chronicles books that they picked up, and they want to translate the whole series. And that's already 6 books in, and I will be writing number 7 soon. And on July 14th, which will be my 49th birthday, I will release my 45th solo book, Baiting Kong, which is the 4th book in my Rolling Jokers Motorcycle Club series. And book 2 of that will be out on Audible almost immediately afterwards, because we are working our way through. I have one narrator, he's doing the whole series, and we are working our way through every book. And he is amazing. He is very human, and he is hilarious.
Awesome. Well, I'm pretty easy to find online at gailzmartin.com, morganbrice.com. If you spell those right, you'll find me on pretty much all the major social medias under one or both of those names. Silent Partner, which is part of my Fox Hollow series set up in the Adirondacks, just came out in audiobook in the middle of June. And Cursed, which is the next Witchbane book, should be out soon. I'm also finishing up Sinistrom, which is the 3rd Night Vigil book under my Gail name. It's not romance, but the characters show up in a lot of the Morgan Brice books to help out with supernatural problems. So you'll recognize them. And then after that is another Treasure Trail book set up in Cape May, New Jersey. So lots of good stuff coming down the pipeline. Well, folks, thank you so much. This has been a blast. And now I'm hungry for fair food. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more romance coming up on Continual, so we'll see you online.